Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be able to do this presentation for you all. And it's great seeing a lot of you that I have had phone conversations with, getting to put a face with the name. So hopefully this can be helpful for you as well. So I have a quick slideshow here. And then like Terry mentioned, I'm going to actually log into, Terry was kind enough to offer her myCommunity account to me so that you can see the retiree side of things rather than what I see as an employee. But I will walk through a few different steps that I know normally either cause some hurdles or are just really common for you all to be working with. So you can just watch step by step through that process, and then Roger and Ed have this recording going. So if you miss a step or want to refer back to it, it sounds like that'll be available at a future point. And I realized I had this nice agenda slide, but I just talked through it, so I'm going to move right past. A quick about me, just to create some connections before I dive into the nuts and bolts of the presentation. I am a community impact specialist at PGE. As of September, I've worked here for 3 years now. It's actually the only place I've ever worked post-college. I graduated in 2020, right during the beginning of the pandemic. So I lost my final term to the pandemic and didn't have a graduation, but still got a job, thankfully. A lot of my friends had theirs canceled at the time or delayed. I was lucky enough to be able to intern with the environmental department as a communications intern back in September 2020, I guess is when that was. And funny enough, the very first day I started was when the Labor Day fires broke out. So not only was it the pandemic, but also it was such thick smoke that you couldn't see more than a couple feet in front of you. So it was like the apocalypse for my first few days on the job, which was intimidating, but still here. Moved over to the community impact team last May. So it's been almost a year and a half now in this position. I graduated from the University of Oregon. Hopefully there are some Ducks in here, even though we had a rough weekend football-wise, but still proud to be a Duck. And then my role specifically on the community impact team is managing the volunteer program, but I support a lot of education and giving work with Whitney Welsh, who I'm sure a lot of you recognize that name or have interacted with Whitney in the past, because she is fantastic to work with and is such an expert with all things giving in my community. So if you're ever unable to reach me or we have questions, Whitney is always a great resource as well. All right. So I wanted to just give a little bit of background about community impact, the team as a whole, because there's 7 of us total. A lot of you will probably know Craig Arnson, my manager. He's been at PG for, Terry, do you know, like 25 plus years now?
I think I would say 25.
Yeah, 25 years.
Yeah.
But we have a couple different people working on different things. I won't get into the nitty gritty really, but just wanted to give a little background. We have, starting in the dark blue, we have a gear shop. So that's just an opportunity for PG employees to buy gear. I don't know if you can see, I have a polo on today. Volunteerism, we're gonna dive into that more and what the benefits are for both employees and retirees because they overlap. Sponsorships, we're constantly at community events with a table and we're working with the community to solicit feedback from them, as well as provide information and outreach, especially about topics like wildfires or storm preparedness that are just becoming more and more relevant every year. Funds and grants, same sort of situation. We work with local nonprofits to provide things like solar or batteries or electric vehicles, and that money comes in from the DEQ and other sources, but really great way to move the community towards electrifying. Giving, you are very familiar with that, but we'll still talk about it a little bit more. Getting the PGE match for donations that you all are making to local organizations. Project Zero is kind of an umbrella term, but it is a few different initiatives. Most importantly, it's an internship program where we pay for interns who are identified as opportunity youth. They're not really in a career position, but are looking to in the green economy specifically. We pair them with a nonprofit. So like Friends of Trees or Verde or Forest Park Conservancy, and they get to work there for 6 months and learn things like financial literacy. They get to just make a steady income. They get connected with a bunch of PG employees who serve as volunteers. but really just get them set up for the next step in their life. And the final one here is the PG Foundation. It's the philanthropic arm of PGE, and it kind of exists separately. But again, that's just a lot of money that goes into the community for different things. Most recently, they opened a career pathways grant. So again, trying to build that labor workforce in the green economy. So I know that was a lot of information. The most important to volunteerism and giving as they apply to you all as retirees, I'm going to jump into having more information there. So giving at PGE, the thing that I want to highlight, and Terry, I know this is very important to you, you can donate at any point throughout the year and receive the PGE match. That's always going to be the case. So you don't have to wait until the employee giving campaign, which is happening right now, to make your donations. And that's skipping down to the third piece. Because there are no payroll deductions that exist for you, that's kind of like the unique part of the employee giving campaign for active employees. So you're not bound by those dates anymore. You can donate anytime throughout the year. Of course, I know a lot of people will wait till the end of the year so they can sum it all up. I implore you not to wait too close to the end of the year just because people are traveling, schedules get busy. It just is, again, a hectic time of the year, and we want to make sure that you are able to match any donations that you're making to eligible organizations. The PGE match for retirees is 50% again to eligible organizations. That is, and you can have up to $2,000 from the company. So that would be $4,000 that you as the retiree donates. That gets matched $2,000. So if you donate $100 to Friends of Trees, then PGE will match it $25. And of course, you have to either do that through myCommunity by, and we can look at this later so you have a visual with it, but by submitting it via credit card, or if you donated to a nonprofit, we call it offline, but like you went to an event and you paid via check or via cash, or you just donated straight through the nonprofit's website, you'll get some form of receipt and you can upload that receipt to myCommunity with the correct dollar amount, and that's eligible for the match as well. So a couple different ways for you to submit that donation and get your 50% match, because we definitely want you to take advantage of that. It's money that's on the table. So might as well direct it from the company to the nonprofit that you care about. And then lastly is organization eligibility. The really broad general guidelines for what makes it organization eligible versus ineligible is if it has political affiliations, religious affiliations, or it's a fraternal organization. So like the benefits only exist for the people who are part of that organization. It's not eligible for the PGE match. There are some gray areas, especially surrounding religious organizations, because there might be a Catholic church that's associated with a Catholic school. Depending on how they're set up and what sort of agreements they have in place, the school or even the church sometimes might be eligible. So if you have a question that you're like, this might be in a gray area, or you want to get in contact with me and someone from the nonprofit or from the church, you're welcome to reach out. There's no harm in asking them to, we have a form that they would need to sign to prove that they're eligible. So there's no harm in sending that. And of course, if they return it saying that they can't, they're not eligible, doesn't mean you can't donate to them. You just won't receive the PGE match. So that's the quick information about giving. We'll log on to myCommunity later and walk through what a donation process may look like, just so that you can visualize how to take advantage of these benefits if you're not familiar. The next piece is volunteering. And I know this is what a lot of you will often have questions about. So I'll walk through each of these pieces. But again, as a reminder, we're going to go into myCommunity and walk through the processes because they can be a little more complicated than the giving ones are. But I always start with the incentive. I feel like that catches people's attention, and then you work backwards to the different ways that you can reach that incentive. So cause cards is our title, or what myCommunity calls this incentive. And for every 10 hours of volunteer time that's uploaded on myCommunity, so we can't tell if you volunteer and don't upload, you have to put it into myCommunity for this calculation to happen. But for every 10 hours that's uploaded on myCommunity, you earn $100 to donate to any, again, eligible organization, same eligibility requirements as we were just talking about. And that can happen up to 4 times per year. So 40 hours, $400. And if you do reach, as I know many of you do, that 40-hour mark, then the $400 can be split in $100 increments. You don't have to send all $400 to one organization. You can send $100 to this organization, and then $100 to this organization, and then the remaining $200 to the third organization. Now you can break that out how you want. It doesn't have to be to the organization or nonprofit that you volunteered with. You have complete freedom as long as, again, they're eligible to send that out as you'd like. So a couple different ways to make sure that you are uploading your hours on myCommunity to earn those cause cards, because I'm sure most, if not all of you, are easily reaching that 40-hour mark throughout the year. The first one is if you are participating in a volunteer event that isn't coordinated by the company, as I know some of you attend, like Terry, we volunteered at the food bank together back in April. If you're not going through one of the published volunteer events that's on myCommunity and you're doing something on your own time, which is fantastic, you will just upload those hours into myCommunity. It's pretty simple, where you're pretty much you're typing in the date, how many hours, a brief description of what you did, and then what the nonprofit was that you benefited. And again, that's a pretty simple upload process. It doesn't ask for too much information, and there's the opportunity to make it a recurring volunteer appointment or opportunity. So if you're doing something every single Thursday, you don't have to go in and enter it every single Thursday. You can set it up to recur, and all you would have to do is, if you miss a Thursday, there's just a little X button next to each date, and you can just remove one at a time. So a little easier doing it in reverse that way. The second one is board service. Sharon, I think you were mentioning before we started that you're on the board of a few organizations. That counts as volunteer time, so you can upload that. And I know those are pretty reliable appointments as well, where it's like once a month on the same date. So again, you can set up that recurring appointment. So it's really easy to have those hours logged and not really have to think about it throughout the year. But great way to count up those hours. The third one is Spring Into Action, the volunteer campaign. You may be familiar with it from when you worked at PGE. We're bringing it back now. This year was the first post-pandemic that we offered Spring Into Action, but there's just a bunch of volunteer events for retirees and employees during the month of April in honor of National Volunteer Month and Earth Month. So of course, we implore you to always be volunteering on your own time all throughout the year, but we'll be coordinating a lot of events during April. And that's just a great reminder in reason with the National Volunteer Month and Earth Month to get out and support the community in one way or another. And then the last one, similar to that, is we have events posted on myCommunity year round. So you're always welcome to sign up and participate with those. They're focused a lot on nonprofit partners that we're currently working with, or we funded or sponsored in the past. But of course, everyone is always welcome, because the more the merrier for a lot of these events in terms of amplifying our community impact. Okay, so I think the most important piece of what we're going to do today is going into myCommunity and demoing each of these different processes. So a quick couple of bullet points before we move over there. The first one is I have two options for login links, and I'm going to put them in the chat just so that you can bookmark these, you can save them, write them down. That way you don't ever have an issue at least getting to myCommunity, because that's the first step in being able to take advantage of any of these benefits. If it's your first time ever logging into myCommunity, there's a couple different steps versus anytime after that, how you log in. I have them on here. I don't think I'm going to talk through them, but that way, if you're watching this back at another point, you can always pause on this slide, or if we just send the slides out after, Terry, Roger, Ed, I don't know if that's the plan, but I'm happy to send these over. That way you can just see this, and it's some nice detailed instructions, but entering the temporary password, making sure to create a password. And the two things that I'll remind you of before we actually move over to the site, you have to update your password on an annual basis. I know that's pretty often, and it's a little annoying. We have to update our password just for the computer access like every 3 months. So I really understand that it's not fun to constantly be updating your password. And I run out of passwords. I'm sure you all do. I only have a few that I like to use, so I have to break into some new passwords. But because people aren't logging into myCommunity as often, it's something the website is set up. It's not a decision that we made. So I just want to highlight that if it's been a long time since you've logged in, you will have to make a new password. And then the second piece of that is just, if you are logging in within a year, remember your password. That's always the thing that I think trips people up, is just remembering or writing down your password so that you always have it available. And unless you're resetting it, that can hopefully make your login process pretty easy. If your account email is incorrect, or you think it is because you're not receiving emails when you should, you're welcome to email me. I have my email included here. I'll reach out to the HR team and have them update it, because if you don't have the correct email address because of a typo or just it's changed over time, it's really hard to be able to log in or get notifications if it's not ever reaching you. And then there is a how to log in video that my teammate Whitney has made, and it's on the retiree YouTube page. So I have the link here, just again for when we send these out, because unfortunately today I can't actually show the login screen on my computer. It just automatically logs me in and I can't get back a step. So that's why I wanted to provide this information, provide a link showing how to do it. And then, of course, we'll dive into the various processes once you've actually gotten into myCommunity. But wanted to address that because I know there's a few different steps, and updating your password on an annual basis is a bit of a process. So I am going to copy and paste these two links into the chat, and then also stop sharing my screen so I can pull up myCommunity, and we can go through a few different processes. And Terry, we're holding all questions until the end, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, bring your questions. You've got some really good questions already in the queue. So keep adding those to the chat, please.
And hopefully we can answer, I haven't looked at them, but hopefully we can answer some of them during the demo. Here are the two login links. Hopefully they'll send. Ooh, they're really tiny. There we go. That's better. So those are two links that you can get to. If you want to follow along, assuming you're able to log in quickly, you're welcome to. I definitely recommend it if it's possible. And then bear with me. I'm going to pull up your account, Terry.
So Nate, you want us to follow along via the link, or watch the screen?
So you can watch the screen to see what I'm clicking through, but if you are wanting to follow along on your own account and either start logging some things right now, or just to be able to click through. I know if I do it myself, it becomes a lot easier to remember in the future. Then you're welcome to do that, but I'll have it all up on my screen.
Great, thank you.
And can you see it right now? It should have a big game on letters. Okay, perfect. I will get started. So I am in, oh, great, that didn't work. Sometimes it does this. You get to see how the sausage is made here for a second. There we go. Okay, so I am going to start with how to log volunteer hours, and then Terry is kind enough to have a cause card that we can actually go and cash out. So you'll see the first part of the process of getting enough hours, and then moving into how to use the cause card. So across the top, you have your homepage, which looks like this, has a nice dashboard of your donations and your hours, some links here about just the program overview, a lot of the information I talked about today, how to upload your volunteer hours, information about the cause card. So it's a great resource to click through these and see the information. And then there's also volunteer opportunities, favorite organizations that you may have volunteered with or donated to in the past. It's a really helpful dashboard on this homepage. It didn't always look like this in myCommunity. It used to be just a really jumbled homepage. And so when they changed this a year or so ago, it's just so much more helpful that it can redirect you to a lot of places and give you a lot of information that you would have to search for a little harder in the past. But across the top, there's home, volunteer, give, cause cards, and then featured, which just has these same little articles down here. So you don't really need to use that one as often. But if you hover over volunteer, it's going to have a drop down, and we'll click through each of them really quick. The first one is my volunteering, and this just has different events that you're participating in coming up, as well as history of volunteer events that you've participated in the past. So if you wanted to look at something or make adjustments, you're welcome to from this page. Same with individual activities. I'd imagine this is a lot of where you all will have your volunteer hours hosted. Search opportunities. This is if you wanted to, especially during Spring into Action in April, if you wanted to join a volunteer event. All of these are ones that I'm posting throughout the year. So like we have a STEAM kit build with OMSI, we have a Girl Scouts of Oregon STEM Day, just all different sorts of opportunities that you can reach out to learn more or participate in. And then we'll skip over create and manage, but the main one that I really want to highlight here is in the volunteer dropdown, record hours. This is where you will go to log any volunteering that you're doing on your own time. And I'm going to start walking through this process right now. We'll have this separated too in a YouTube video in the future. So if you miss a step right now, that's okay. We'll move along just because I want to make sure to leave time at the end for questions. So go ahead and click get started. And I'm going to just go through the whole process and create some details about a random volunteer event. Terry, don't worry, I'll remove these after, even though you've already earned all your cause cards. But so there's a few different pieces of information that you have to enter. And again, it's not really asking for too much. So hopefully this process doesn't take very long. I am going to say, we'll just stick with a basic Oregon Food Bank volunteering as the title, and then activity description. So you don't need to write paragraphs about this. It's really just a basic sentence or two about what you're doing. So volunteering, again, I'm just making all of these up, but on a weekly basis at the free sorting station of the Oregon Food Bank. So that's plenty of information. I don't know if you do resorting with a hyphen, but that's plenty of information. You don't need to spend too much time on that section. It's really just a quick breakdown of what you might be doing. Adding the location, there is a virtual option here. If this is something you're doing online, you'll just click this and the location field will disappear. So that is always an option if it isn't happening at a specific spot. We'll go ahead and enter Oregon Food Bank. And you can copy and paste addresses in there as well. If it's a well-known location, you can type in the name like I did for Oregon Food Bank. But if it's at a spot that is like in a green area where there's not really a specific address for it, you can just enter in the closest area. Again, it's not the most essential information to have spot on. Benefiting organization, this is where you will type in the nonprofit that you are benefiting with your volunteering. So in this case, we're doing it in this example, Oregon Food Bank volunteering. So I will go to organization name and type in Oregon Food Bank. And there it is. I always recommend double checking, especially when you're going through the cause card process or the giving process, because that's actually sending your money out. Double check different details like the photo or the address to make sure that you don't click on the wrong one. For example, here, there's a Huntington, Oregon Food Bank. While that would be great to support them, I don't know anything about the Huntington, Oregon Food Bank. It's not where I'm volunteering or where I'm intending for a cause card to go. So I know the address, it's the same as what I had just entered in the location field earlier. So I will make sure to click on this. Another option too, if you have the tax ID or EIN of the nonprofit, that's always a great way to make sure that you have the exact right nonprofit, you'll click on the little button next to registration ID, and then you'll type in what that number is. And it should just give you one result because every single organization has a unique registration ID. In this case, I don't know the Oregon Food Banks off the top of my head, but thankfully they were a quick result. But here's the registration ID just to show you what it looks like. It's normally 2 numbers, a hyphen, and then a few more numbers after that. Oregon Food Bank. And then this is the opportunity to either manually enter dates. If this was a one-off opportunity, you just went and did a volunteer opportunity one time, you don't plan on doing it again where you want to have all this information saved on myCommunity, you can leave it as is. But if you are going on a recurring basis because it's a board meeting or you always volunteer on Tuesdays, you'll click on the setup recurring schedule. And I'll go through the steps that you have to in order to get it to autofill all the dates that you are going there and save you just a ton of time on entering information. I highly recommend this if it is something that's on a recurring basis. So we'll say, Terry, that your first day of volunteering at the Oregon Food Bank was last Monday. And then it's how many hours you're going each time. So if Terry is going to the Oregon Food Bank and you're just there for 2 hours a day, or a volunteer opportunity, then you'll type into, this is not the sum of the hours across all of the events. It's just each time you visit, each occurrence, how many hours are you there for? And then we said it was on a weekly basis. So it occurs every 1 week. You can adjust this to be every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. You can do it on a monthly basis, where if you're just meeting quarterly, you would switch this to months, and then you would type in every 3 months. And it gives you a little explanation in this green box. You can double check, just since sometimes having these broken up pieces might be confusing, but you would read down here, occurs every 3 months on Monday, because that was our start date. And the last occurrence will end right now, because we're only repeating it one time. It's going to end the very same day that it starts. This is where you can update it to be, let's just say 12 times. So that'll last through July 13th, 2026, because it's on every 3 months. We're going to adjust this to be back to every 1 week. And that actually takes you perfectly to Christmas. So we'll leave that just for an easy date to remember. But you can adjust the, I want this to repeat blank times as much as you want. And each time this field down here where it has the Christmas date will update. So if you don't actually know what's exactly 12 weeks from now, that's okay. You can do a little experimenting and be like, okay, 10 takes me to 12/11, 11 is 12/18, and I want it to be done on Christmas because I'll redo it once it starts in 2024. So you can change this. It'll update this little green schedule down here, and that's kind of your end all be all to read through before you move on to the next step. So this looks good. Volunteering for the rest of the year on a weekly basis, 2 hours at a time at the Oregon Food Bank. And then you can skip these last 2 sections. These aren't relevant and they're not required. Anything with the red star, the red asterisk is required. If it's not, don't feel the need to enter that information like these last 2 sections. So we're going to go ahead and click continue. And it'll verify you're creating 12 entries because we did it for 12 weeks. And then each one is 2 hours. So a total of 24 hours. And I will say yes. And then here's the opportunity where you see all of the different occurrences now that have autofilled. You didn't have to enter these all in because you created it on a weekly basis. And if you're like, okay, I know I'm out of town on November 6th, then you would just click this little X here and remove the entry. And so that way, instead of you having to enter each entry in, you can just remove them. And it's a lot less work if, again, you're doing it on a recurring basis. And then similarly, you can edit certain days. If you're like, well, I know on Christmas, I'm going to be volunteering extra long. So you can click this little pencil icon. And if you hover over it, it tells you what that icon means. So in this case, it's edit. And then you can adjust either the date because you did it 1 day later. You weren't actually going to volunteer on Christmas because you were with your family, but you're doing 4 hours instead of 2 because you want to help people who didn't have food on Christmas. Then you can make those slight adjustments and click update. And now here, instead of it saying 12.25 for 2 hours, it says 12.26 for 4 hours. So really easy to just make those slight adjustments, but have everything be this baseline that for the most part will be the case in your volunteering. All right, so once you double check these, and again, you can come back and edit them. This isn't finalized as soon as you click next. Then you will click continue. And again, it has a little breakdown of entries added and hours added. Another opportunity to review and confirm. The site really wants you to make sure that you know exactly what you entered. But recurring schedule, start date, how often it's happening, when the last occurrence will be, who the benefiting organization, all this information that you just entered, it's a great time to just look through it one more opportunity. And then the very last step is save. So at this point, the entries haven't actually been logged yet. You need to click this blue save button in order for the hours to start counting. So we'll go ahead and do that. And you'll get this page. If you earned a cause card, you'll get a pop-up just like this, and you can go redeem it, but we'll wait a second before we jump to that step. But now you can see success, activity saved, Oregon Food Bank volunteering. It has the entries added, the hours added, and how many total hours there are. You have to get to this screen and see this screen to know that your hours have been logged. If you don't get to this point, then you either missed a step or stopped too early. So make sure that you see this. And then if you go to your volunteering now, which is a page we were looking at earlier, the board activities for Terry was at the very top. Now Oregon Food Bank volunteering is. And just a reminder how we got to this page right here. If you were just logging in, you would hover over volunteer and then click on the first drop down of my volunteering. And it starts on opportunities, this page. You'll want to, if it was something that you logged on your own, like we just did, you will move over and click individual activities. You should see what you just entered, assuming you reached that activity or the success page that we were looking at. And you still have the opportunity at any point to edit these. So again, just because we submitted it doesn't mean that it's set in stone, that if you end up getting sick, let's say, like I did for the last presentation, and you don't actually make it to one of these events that you thought you were going to, you simply hit the little pencil icon, which means edit. And then you have all of the same information here, and you can either add entries because you went an additional time, or you can remove entries that you've already put in. So we weren't able to make November 13th. Then you can click the X and remove that entry. You can add one. Let's just say that this Friday we were able to go for 2 more hours. Once you enter in the participation date and the hours you plan to volunteer, this add entry button will create itself. You can't click it before then. And you add it, and now it'll be under future occurrences. And yeah, that'll be same looking page, hit continue. And here is that very last page where you're reviewing and confirming. Again, nothing is saved at this point. You have to hit the blue save button to reach that same success activity saved page that you know is your completion page. Okay, I know this is a lot of information. Again, I'm really happy that it can be recorded so that you can go back and follow along if you're not able to right now. But hopefully this will be a good starting point. I'm going to go back to the home page now that we've earned a cause card, and we will go through that redemption process. So if you go on home, if you have a cause card available, there will be a dollar amount here. If you don't have a cause card, either because you've already earned all $400 and redeemed them, or it's the start of January and you haven't reached your first 10-hour threshold, it'll have just a dash, kind of like this one does right here. But if you do have cause cards available and there's a dollar amount in this field, you can simply click on it from the home page, and this is where you can start the redemption process. And there is a button here if you want to see where you've redeemed cause cards in the past, you can, just to double check that things look correct or see how much you've used in the current year. So we are going to redeem this $100 cause card that Terry has. And Terry, just to double check, Oregon Food Bank, right?
It's a, yeah.
Okay, just since we are going to go through the whole process and actually redeem it. Okay, so you will click redeem now. And this blue bar is just the progress. You'll see that each step we move, it'll progress forward. But this process is much simpler than the one we went through. So the first step is to choose the charity. Again, you can search by organization name, or you can search by registration ID by clicking this button and then entering the registration ID. We know that Oregon Food Bank comes up in search, so I will do that. And it'll pre-fill right here, and you're allowed to click continue once you do that. And then once you click continue after selecting the organization, it is asking you essentially to fill the 10 hours that are required for this cause card. You will have a list of all of the volunteering that you've done, and you need it to add up to 10. You can't get to this page if it doesn't add up to 10 or 20 or 30 or 40. So pretty much you just have to click the icons next to the number of hours that get added up. So in this case, Terry has 10 hours for board activities. We'll just select that, and now it's all 10 hours are full and we're able to proceed. If you click something that's not enough hours, so like 8, this continue button, I can't click on this because I still need 1.25 hours. So you're essentially proving that you've earned the cause card. So 1.25 hours, we can add PBEM, NET, and ARO activities. And that's that extra 1.5 that we need. And there was 0.75 hours of credit already included here. But the math adds up. And so we are able to click continue. If you want to add a designation, this is similar to when you're making a donation. If you want to add a designation, that says, I want it to be for this specific project, you are able to in this drop down, and you would click on it and it'll give you a field to type in saying, I would like to support the fundraising efforts of blank, or whatever the designation is, but we'll leave it as none. You can choose what information you share with the charity. So name and email, name, address, and email, or anonymous. In this case, we'll just move forward with anonymous, Terry, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Okay. And then you have another review and confirm page where you have the recipient as Oregon Food Bank, the dollar amount, how many or the number of hours that you're submitting. And then we have just a giving guidelines statement to review. And if you have read and understand that statement, then you can click this checkbox and confirm. And clicking this confirm button will submit it. So again, Terry, is it okay that I submit this? Or all right. Got the thumbs up. So I'm going to click confirm so you can see what the page looks like once you've done so. Success, redemption complete, as the amount, the recipient, and then you can go and look at your redemption history. But that wraps up how to submit a cause card. And then now, in the interest of time, since I want there to be enough time to answer questions, do we want to go through a donation, or do we think that process is familiar enough to everyone that we'd rather just start answering questions?
What about donations if they're on credit cards? Because I do that through every month.
Yeah, do you want me to walk through that process?
Yeah, I think we need. Yeah, I think we need to see how people log offline donations, Nate, because that's primarily, I think, what we'll be doing.
Okay, perfect. Then I will go through that quickly. Sorry to be a little quicker, but I want to make sure we have time for questions. But under Give, there's search organizations and My Giving. My Giving is the same as My Volunteering, where you can just see your full history of everything that you've donated to. Terry, I'm not going to click that just so that people aren't seeing your donations necessarily. So we'll go straight to search organizations, and you'll have, again, featured, eligible organizations, and then you can type in either a name or that same registration ID. Just for consistency purposes, we'll be making a fake donation to the Oregon Food Bank. Typed in, there's filters here if you'd like. If it's something generic and you want to filter by just the nonprofits that are based in Portland, then you can do so. So we'll click Oregon Food Bank, and there's a few different hours here, or different selections here. Record new hours if you wanted to volunteer with them. It's just a different starting point for the process that I was just talking about. Make a new donation. This button is if you're doing a credit card donation. When you click on this, the only option that should be here is credit card. Yep. And then you'll enter your credit card details, very similar to online shopping in that sense, but again, it's a donation rather than purchasing a product. And then the one that we will cover today is logging an offline donation, this final button. So you'll click on login offline donation, and anything with the red star is something you have to enter. So let's just do a $100 donation. You'll enter the date that you submitted it. So the one caveat is it has to be in the same calendar year as you're entering. So I cannot enter a donation that was in July of 2022 because that happened last year. It has to be something that was in 2023. So we'll just say that on October 2nd, and you can go all the way back to January 1st, 2023, but we'll do for speed purposes, October 2nd as the donation date. And there's a few different types of ways that you can do an offline donation. You wrote a check to charity. It was through a fundraiser. You paid by credit card, but not through myCommunity. Any of these options you'll select, whichever is most relevant. So we'll just do check to charity in this case. Again, the designation field where you can do in memory of or for a specific campaign, very similar to what we were looking at for cause cards. And then the last step is adding a receipt. So this is where if you received an email or a PDF or a printout of the receipt of your donation, you will need to attach that here. Just so that we can move on, I'm just going to choose a random document, but normally you would enter, you would enter.
If I can interject, I think Jeannie's question is at the end of the year. I mean, here's what I do. The charities that I volunteer, that I donate to on a monthly basis, I ask them for a receipt for the whole year, and then I just enter it in December before the cutoff. So I'm entering one donation for the entire year at one time at the end of the year. I'm sorry to interject. I just feel like I know what Jeannie's question was.
No, that's right. Because I could go in and do it every month, but I do get a receipt at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's easiest, I think.
Yeah, as long as that
Sorry to
receipt
interrupt.
includes each of the lines or just the total amount, because ultimately the company will be matching that total amount that you donate. As long as that information's on the receipt, you can do just one bundled one at the end of the year rather than every single month coming in here and doing this process. So yes, thank you, Terry.
Will you demonstrate the other? Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I'll put it in chat.
Okay. All right, we'll move through this really quickly, but you will be able to add to my cart once you've added a receipt attachment. And then you can check out now. You can explore more if you wanted to add more donations and then check out at once. Edit the amount or remove the donation. You have that option here. But again, this is very much like an e-commerce site like Amazon, where instead of now getting straight to the checkout point, though, we're going to apply the match here once it loads. So there's this little button right here that says apply for $50 because it was a $100 donation. And if you click that, it'll update this little bar over here so you can see how much of your match is available. If you're choosing not to match because you want to use it elsewhere, or you're just choosing not to, you would select do not match this donation, but we won't do that for now. And then next step, same question as we saw with the cause cards of which information do you want to share with the charity. For speed purposes, we'll do anonymous, but you can share your name or email or anything else. And then another review of this information to just make sure that you're following PG's giving guidelines in order to earn that match from the company. So you'll click agree. And then just because this isn't a real donation, I'm not going to click the last button, but you would click confirm and finish and get a screen that pops up that says this is exactly, or this is all the information. Thank you for making your donation. And this is the amount of match that you got. And of course, once you reach that page, that means that it's been submitted. Okay, I know we only have a little less time than anticipated, but if we want to start running through the questions.
Nate, I'll go ahead and start. Sharon's last question, you're in the same area. She asked, would you do a quick demo on the credit card portion? You're
Yes.
still in that same screen, so I thought it might be just go ahead and take that now.
Yeah, okay.
Did it.
Let's do search organizations or food bank. Okay, you would click make a new donation on the page of the nonprofit you want to donate to, and credit card. And then it has a couple pre-filled options here. If you're not specifically donating one of these, you'll just type in. So we'll just put $50 over here. You can add a designation as we've seen in the past. And then it does call out with credit card donations, there's a 2.5% service fee, or roughly 2.5%. And so it shows that of your $50 donation, only $48.60 will actually reach the nonprofit. So that's the one thing I always like to call out. You will click add to my cart, and of course, checkout now. And then from here on out, it's the same process that we walked through with the offline donation, where you will click if you want to apply the match, you'll read through that giving guidelines statement, make sure to agree to it, and then submit and confirm. And then of course, once you in between where I'm at now and the last step, it'll ask for your credit card information.
And there's no recurrent.
There is not. So there's no way to recur on a credit card donation. So if you are
Expensive
wanting to
anyways.
wait
Yeah,
until the
okay.
end. What was that?
Oh, it's just expensive anyways. You know, that service charge is a killer.
It is. So I definitely recommend avoiding it if you can, but I know that's not always possible.
Great. Okay, I think we should maybe just leave, I don't know, whatever you think, Nate. We can leave your screen up, and then if a question comes up where you want to navigate to it, you might as well leave it up. So
Yeah.
I'm going to start at the beginning, and I think the very first one, I don't know who submitted these. I didn't catch that, but the first question I have was, I give each month through my credit card. How do I log this in my community? I think you just went through that. So if the person that asked that question is unclear on that, would they like to speak up? But I think that's just been covered. Okay.
Yeah.
Are cause cards and 50% match sent to organizations regularly or all at one time?
Great question. So we're on a monthly cycle right now. So let's just say all the donations, whether it's cause card or offline or for employees recurring payroll, anything that happens in the month of October is then sent midway through November. And so it's on that constant basis where it's a couple weeks after. If the nonprofit is signed up for ACH through the myCommunity host site, it'll get there a lot quicker because it's electronic. If they're signed up for checks, it has a little bit of a delay in writing and sending out the check. So it'll take a little bit longer, but it's on a monthly cycle.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. This question says, years ago, I was not able to log into myCommunity. That is why I haven't logged my hours. Can this be covered? So the person that asked that, we went through the login procedures. Did you have any other questions on that to ask Nate?
Yes. One
Okay.
is I need the PGE's address again, and also, is it through my name or is it through my e-number? Which I'm trying to remember what was.
Yeah, great question. So I sent in the chat, and I'm sure it can be shared elsewhere, the two different link options to get to myCommunity. And then the login is typically based on your e-number. So if we want to connect after this, and I will say that it's the employee giving campaign right now, so I'm super swamped. If I have slow responses, I apologize. But I can look up your e-number and share that with you so that you can have it for the future, because that will be needed for login, but I can access it.
There's also a link on pgeretirees.org. So if for some reason you need that login, you can always go to the retiree website and click on that and get to that site.
Okay.
I think so. And I think I'll also say that Nate already mentioned it, and Ed and you and I, Terry, we will send out this for his presentation, and we can also send out the links also. People are free to copy them out of the chat now and put them on the desktop, like Nate said. So you can have those quicker if you wish, but we will send out this presentation. And then also later on, we will be posting the recording of this presentation.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one is, how do I register my organization on the website so I can log my volunteer hours and take advantage of matching donations?
That's
okay. I realized how to do that, and I found my organization. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Good
I'll
job.
add one quick thing just for a little background. I'm glad it's already answered and your organization's available, but the website sources from the IRS listing of 501c3s. So if you want to have an organization show up here that isn't, it's either being caught by one of our filters for like a political or religious organization. So if that's the case, reach out to me. If not, it's probably because it's not registered with the IRS, which is something that takes place outside of PG or me or Whitney's jurisdiction.
Okay, great. This one may have been answered. If I ask for recurrent payments via credit card, might PGE do the charge and the match for me, or do I make the recurring?
You got it. It's done.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Double checking. I want to make sure I don't leave anybody in the lurch.
And what I'll add another thing too, just because I think it might be confusing. If you're donating via credit card, not through myCommunity, so like you're going onto the nonprofit's website or at an event, you swipe your card, even though it was with your credit card, that counts as an offline donation. Don't go into myCommunity and log it as a credit card and enter your information. That'll be a whole new donation, unless of course you want to do that.
Okay, great. The next one, if we know of a volunteer activity with a qualified organization, may we submit it to you, Nate, for possible inclusion with the opportunities?
Yes, definitely. You are welcome to email volunteer opportunities that you want to invite people to. The thing that I'll normally ask is just for some of that basic information of like what the activity is, the location, date and time, just all the event description details, so that when I get it posted, I can have all of that in one place. But yes, you're always welcome to send things to me and I can post them for employees to see.
Nice. Do we receive confirmation when an organization has received the cause card?
You will not receive confirmation via email. However, I believe if you go into My Giving, so this drop down right here, if you go into My Giving, sorry, can you see the drop downs? I know sometimes it doesn't work. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Then you can go and see what status the donation is in. And so sometimes it says invoiced because it's in that month that we're collecting all the payments. Sometimes it says in transit. Other times it says dispersed. But to know if your donation reached for sure, I would say the best way is to double check with the nonprofit if you have a connection there or a contact. If you are trying to do that, I would recommend not having, I'm forgetting when you're sharing what details you want to share with the nonprofit, don't do it anonymously because they won't be able to point to a single donation and be like, that was yours that we've now received.
Nice. Okay. Let's make a quick little note for myself. Okay. Why would I enter all of my hours instead of just enough to qualify for a PGE donation?
It's entirely up to you. If you just want to enter the 40 hours so you earn your cause cards, you're welcome to. We have some end of year reporting, things like the ESG report, and then there's some other ones that I don't know the names of, but in those, they have like a social section, and we talk about how many volunteers our employees have accrued, how many volunteer hours our retirees have. So, I mean, it's great to reflect as much of that accurately as possible, but for your purposes, if you only want to log the 40 hours to earn your cause cards, then you definitely can do that.
Okay, great. And I think the answer to this next one is yes. Do cause cards need to be redeemed in blocks of 10 hours?
Yes, but you can wait until the end. So if you've logged 40 hours, you can work through, like you can set all 400 at once. It'll give you an option. If we didn't see it today because Terry just had a $100 cause card available, but if you have all 400 available, it'll give you options of how to break it up, but it has to be in minimum $100 increments. So you can't send $50 of a cause card to someone. It has to be either 100, 200, 300, or 400.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Let's see. Are you saying a match amount can be applied toward a different organization than gifted?
So for cause cards, yes. If I volunteer for 40 hours with the Oregon Food Bank, I can send the $400 in cause cards to Forest Park Conservancy. However, for the actual donations that you're making with your own money, whether it's credit card or that offline that we talked about, that match has to go or will go to the exact same organization. So if we proceeded through this process on my screen right now and applied for the match, the $25 match you get from the company will automatically go to the Oregon Food Bank. That can't be changed.
Okay. Does that make sense to the person that asked that question?
Yes.
Okay. The last one I have, guys, is does a credit card statement work for proof of donation on those?
Yeah, as long as it has the basic information of dollar amount, what the nonprofit was. I know the receipt on using a credit card statement may not have as much information as like the nonprofit's receipt, where it has their tax ID and what the event was. But if it has that basic information that you saw in the offline donation page of like date, dollar amount, and what the nonprofit was, then that could work. But again, don't share extra credit card information. I would say if you're uploading that, make sure, not that Whitney and I are looking to be stealing anyone's credit card information, but always a good thing to do.
Well, so what part of the credit card statement would you use? I mean, just the section that that charity was on?
Yeah, so I would either
You could
crop
cut.
the image so that you don't have other things included. But again, yeah, if it really has those main three of date, nonprofit, or some sort of information about like it wasn't you spending $50 at Target, that it like went to a donation, something that can identify that for us, and then the dollar amount. That anything else on the page, if it is having confidential information, you're welcome to just cut that out.
Would have to have your name on it.
Yes, thank
Right.
you. Name too.
Yeah,
Thank you, Terry.
that would be tricky because my credit, yeah, there's all kinds of charges and stuff on that with the name on it. So yeah, I probably wouldn't recommend that unless they're, it's at the very top or something like that. But that's just me.
I definitely empower you also when you are making a donation to ask the nonprofit for a receipt. I know that may not always be the scenario based on how you're making the donation, but a lot of them should be used to filling that out or having some sort of email that goes out after. So I definitely recommend requesting it if it's possible.
Okay. That's all I got. I think that we are pretty much just 1 minute past.
I have a question.
I was going to say, if Nate's willing to stay on, I think.
I just have a simple one. It has to do with the signing on with your E number. Do you use the E or not? Because I know that there's always an issue.
Use the E. Yes.
Use the E, okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to let people know, and I just put it in the chat, this whole presentation has been recorded on YouTube. And give it a couple of days, we'll edit out some of the early stuff that wasn't relevant. You can go to our PGE retiree channel, just go to YouTube and search PGE space retirees. Presentation will be there with a bunch of other videos. If Nate will send us a slide deck, we'll also get that up on our drive and on our website, pgeretirees.org. In the features or the resources feature, we'll have a link to the video on YouTube, and we'll also have a link to Nate's slide deck once we get it. So you can have an opportunity to review all of this on your own time.
Thanks for throwing that in there, Ed.
Yeah.
There's one more came through. Any way to upload a table of hours as opposed to individual hours at a time?
Not necessarily a table of hours, if I'm understanding that correctly, but you can combine hours. Again, if you want to be saving time. So like if you volunteered on a weekly basis, but it's a little inconsistent where you don't want to have to make those individual adjustments all the time, you can just put like over the span of October, it was 10 hours total. So I don't know if that answers the question necessarily.
I'm not sure which one answered that. Who asked that?
I did.
Okay. That makes sense then, Sharon?
I don't know. I have tables of hours. I have tables of donations, right, to credit cards.
Mhm.
So one of
Can
them
you scan them and just as one table and attach it as an attachment?
It won't pick up the hours.
take it.
It can't read through an Excel document or wherever the table is hosted, unfortunately. So again, you can combine them on something like a monthly basis, so you're not entering every single day that you volunteered.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, there's not a way for it to read through that in autofill, unfortunately.
What I sometimes will do is just keep track of the hours, and if you use a spreadsheet or a table, great. And then just add them, you know, I think the maximum is 24 hours that you can volunteer in a day. Is that right, Nate?
Yeah.
So
Really?
yeah, for
Doesn't feel
obvious
like it.
reasons. So every 24 hours, I'll put, okay, December 12th, December 28th or whatever, and then just put the maximum number of hours in there.
Oh, I
That
got you.
it's a pretty straightforward, simple.
So it's pretty friendly. The system, it's flexible, friendly, as long as I have documentation and I get the number of hours in there, it's gonna go.
Just check it off when you
Exactly.
add
Got
it
it.
in.
Oh, great.
I think the last one I have, if we don't mind, if I give an amount to a charity and it is matched by another donor, will PG do a 50% match on the entire gift or
Great
just my amount?
That's a great question. It'll just be on your amount that you donated. Even like, let's say my parents submitted a donation, even though it's my family and they have the same last name as me, if I uploaded that for a match donation with my money, so if you're being matched by another donor, that's fantastic. You can still get your dollar amount matched, but you can't double match, if that makes sense, or like use their money to then extend your match.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I think that's all we have. Ed, Terry, can you think of anything else before we say sayonara?
Just that it was great to see everybody. Thanks everybody for coming. I know it was valuable. Nate, thank you so much.
Definitely.
For
Oh, thank
this
you, Nate.
information.
Yeah.
And